Good morning. Usually I don't do much self-introduction, but my name is Lv Yi, and I come from Hangzhou, China. Anybody have been in Hangzhou? You're welcome to visit at some point for tourism city. Another thing I would like to mention, this is my first time. Let me introduce this talk a bit. Actually, I created this first version of this talk about 3 years ago. A friend of mine in Alibaba actually asked me to give an internal talk. She said that anything would do. But I suggest actually to first understand some of their challenges so that I can come up with a more meaningful talk for them. She actually mentioned that one of their struggles at that time was this. Every team, it's like every individual team seemed rather efficient, but their overall value delivery from the whole organization wasn't that optimal. So that conversation actually inspired me to create the first version of this talk, from local efficiency to global value. Later, I also evolved this talk by especially adding the AI's impact for that transition. Okay, so this talk will have 3 parts. The first one, we will start to understand what local efficiency means, why it is not enough to have local efficiency, why it is not the same thing as global value. So then we will get to the second part. So the second part, we will look at this whole transition from local efficiency to global value. But this time, we didn't approach that through the lens of AI yet. That goes to the third part. So in the third part, we are going to look at this through the lens of AI. All right, start with local efficiency. When I say local, it's mostly from team's perspective. So that's the individual team. I mean, like 7, 8 people. Why do I call it local? If you think about one team, their scope is actually very much dependent on the team structure. So we will look at actually a few types of team structures. This will be the first one. This is a dimension of cross-functionality. Notice that local and global, they are actually not a binary, it's a spectrum. Suppose that one team can be responsible or is responsible for function, let's say programming. That's very local. But if you add the second functions, let's say design or testing, and adding more and until it becomes fully cross-functional. Through this process, the team's view or the team scope is from very local to gradually becomes very global. Let's look at another dimension. So that's, let's say, one individual team is responsible for a certain component. Then we can expand its scope by having them work on the second component and so on. We can call it a subsystem having multiple components. Then we have multiple subsystems that become a system. So one team, the initial scope is one component. Gradually, it covers a subsystem. Then over time, it covers the whole system. Eventually, it covers the whole product, meaning multiple systems. This is another dimension of from local to global. All right, now let's look at the efficiency. So efficiency, usually we would say, let's say the output per time unit. But the output is dependent on the team scope. Until the team is really cross-functional and working from end to end at product level, the output for them is essentially just tasks. So the problem with tasks is even though that you have completed 95% of tasks, the feature may not still work. This is why the task efficiency doesn't automatically translate into the feature efficiency. All right, suppose that one team is able to develop a feature from end to end. Their efficiency could be measured by the number of features per time unit, for example. But this is not equal to value creation. So here comes another difference between the feature and the value. Suppose that we have 2 teams. First team is able to create, let's say, 5 features per sprint. The second one would be like 3 features per sprint. From the feature perspective, the number of features, and the first one is more efficient than the second one. But if we take into account the value, it may be a different picture. Among the 5 features the first team generates, and probably there's only 1 or 2 features that are really valuable. But for the second team, perhaps all 3 features may be valuable. So feature and value are different things, right? So now let's take a look at another dimension of for different team structure. Suppose that Chip.com is a product. It may be split into several domains, such as flights, tools.
飛行機券とかツールとかホテルとか。
It can be further split into subdomains. Like tools can be split into study tools, private tools, and so on. Yeah, one team can be only responsible for one subdomain. If we expand their scope, over time they may cover the whole domain and eventually cover the whole product scope. Why do we think about that way, expanding? Because the value could be highest value in the local scope. Once you put that item, let's say that item has the highest value in the local scope, but once you put that into the global backlog, it can be ranked low actually. This is why sometimes I call it like whether you optimize value locally versus globally. Yeah. That completes the whole transition from initially focusing on the task, gradually being able to develop a feature from end to end, then focusing on whether those features actually create value. So eventually we look at the global backlog or global scope of what are the most valuable things. All right, this is the first part. I just want to have a quick check if it's working well. We will first focus on, the next part, we are going to actually dive deep. So first, let's focus on move the focus from local or task efficiency to the feature delivery. Because being able to develop features from end to end is actually a necessary condition for creating value. If we look at a feature from end to end, that's cycle time, you will actually notice that it's not a whole time spent on development. If you do some kind of value stream mapping, you will discover actually also much time is spent on waiting and the integration. All right. Okay. So if we look at this waiting time and what causes the long waiting time, you find that actually lots of dependencies across teams. Cross-team dependency by itself may not be a problem. The problem really lies that they are not synchronized. Once it's not synchronized, it creates waiting. Another thing causing slow integration is really silos. There are 2 different kinds of silos. The first one is based on the strong team identity. This is like our team only focusing on this part. Once there's an issue in integration, this strong local identity actually causes teams, not willing to spend effort. They will say, "Oh, this is not our problem," until you find other one. So another silo is based on the capability. Each team speaks different language. They often talk past each other. That slows the integration too. So the typical kind of solution for this is to create feature team. You gather people with different functions and different component background and form an end-to-end team. At first glance, it seems working well. Now this cross-team dependency is gone. At least cross-team silos is gone too. It seems working well until you take a closer look. You find that actually those dependencies and silos are still there. Now it becomes dependencies between team members, silos within the team. This is a feature team, in my experience, I have observed quite often. So each individual member is still working for their own specialty. But this is actually not a feature team I'm talking about. So the thing that I describe is usually called feature group. So this table provides a contrast between feature team and feature group. There are a bunch of differences. I would like to focus on one thing. This is what's in yellow. Each individual is still working on their own specialty. But the real feature team would take shared responsibility. So that creates a kind of common challenge. The challenge is a mismatch between the dynamic work and the static skills. Even at the time you created that feature team, you find a perfect match between the work and skills. But the work will change. So the mismatch is inevitable. So what do you do when you're facing that mismatch? There are two strategies. One is, of course, change the work to match the skills, or change the skills to match the work, right? Which one would be makes more sense? Usually, when we have the conversation like this, people tend to agree that we need to change our skill to match the work. But is it what's happening? Yeah, in my experience, I've seen quite often that we actually change the work to match our skills. It's sort of like we go to our customers, say, we need to work on this stuff because it will make our developers busy. So this is actually goes to one of the very fundamental implications of feature team. Feature team implies multi-learning. Through multi-learning, then we develop our members into multi-specialists. Notice that it's actually not driven for the sake of learning, but it's driven by working on the right stuff. It's probably not going to just happen automatically. So it requires some deliberate organizational design. Let me first briefly introduce this called STAR model. There are 5 elements here. So starting from strategy, that actually specifies how you would like to compete. From that, what kind of organizational capability you need to build. Then you design all 4 other elements to align with that. Structures is about your reporting line and roles and responsibilities. Processes is about how you turn an idea into a potential reachable feature for you. And rewards is about what you measure and how do you do your performance appraisal and things like that. And people practice. People practices is about what kind of people do you recruit and do you promote, and how you develop your people skills and things like that. Let's see, we start with a strategy of optimizing for task efficiency. This may or may not be defined or specified explicitly. Nevertheless, it's something that we optimize in reality. Then it actually makes a lot of sense to create a functional team, like a team specializing on one single function, because that specialization actually creates efficiency. Accordingly, in your process, it may define a backlog consisting of tasks. You focus on the done of tasks. You measure the efficiency based on tasks. You reward accordingly. And when you recruit people, you would like to recruit specialists. It's actually, as a whole, it's very consistent. But if we would like to adopt a real feature team, we need to redesign that. Let's say we change our strategy from focusing on the local or task efficiency to end-to-end feature delivery. Yeah, we decide to form real feature teams. That's about structure. So we are going to do a first exercise there. I want you actually each table just walk through this STAR model. Let's say if we would like to focus on the end-to-end feature delivery, what needs to be redesigned? You can take your reality and think everybody can contribute from your own context. Yeah, we can have like 8 minutes. Then we will get a few groups to share.
報酬について結構お話ししまして、個人の成果じゃなくてチームの成果を評価する。けれども個人自体の 能力はどうやってじゃあ加味されるんだっていう疑問が渦巻いてまして、
プロセスはもうこれはスクラムもしくはレースで進めていくっていうのが最適の一つなんじゃないかなと思いました。
You notice that actually some of the processes actually supports a different strategy than focusing on the task efficiency. Probably one more group.
人の部分についてなんですけど、ちょっと採用戦略も変えてないといけないというのがあって、そもそも従来は職能型で採用されてるんですけど、マルチラーニング、マルチスペシャリストを作りたいであれば、そういう人じゃなくてジェネラルな採用戦略が必要だなと思います。
I hope that this exercise can help you to notice that if you start with a very clearly defined optimization goal, what do you want to optimize, then you look through other elements, how we can change to support that strategy. All right, so let's move on. Okay, so through this organizational redesign, then we can foster the motivation for the teams to work on the common goal and take more shared responsibilities. When you first create a team, then initially each individual may work on their own specialty, but over time, the boundaries among them become blurred. This is the motivation aspect. Another one is capability. So each team members, if they're willing to actually expand their views, but then they still need concrete ways to expand their capability. Here are a couple of examples to support multi-learning. One is called specification by example, which gathers people from different functions, different components all together to look at this requirement, where you can share your functional knowledge and perspectives. Another example is to do pair programming or malprogramming, where people have different, let's say, component background, and they gather together and learn across components. Okay, that's the first part, from the task efficiency to feature delivery. Being able to develop feature from end to end is a necessary but not sufficient condition for value creation. Let's look at what additional things we need to change in order to move from feature delivery to value creation. Here comes a question that confuses people sometimes. Does feature team actually develop features or create value? Any answers very quickly? Just a guess or value? Value. Okay.
ありがとうございます。
Yeah, it's sometimes people confuse that, saying that the feature team is only deliver feature. It's kind of feature by feature. They don't care about what value it generates, which is not true. Actually, that goes to what goes into the product backlog. So if you think of item, that's a generic term of product backlog item. So you think of item could come or start with some kind of business problem or custom problem, then definitely it's value. Okay, we need to redesign a bit based on the previous one. We already say we optimize for feature delivery. Now we want to turn that into value delivery. You actually can do similar things as your previous exercise. Look through all the elements. What needs to be changed to support value creation. Process you use to only clarify the requirements, focusing on what this feature is about. But then if you want to optimize for value creation, you definitely start with value. In your product backlog refinement, you probably will adopt like impact mapping, this kind of tool to illustrate what's the goal or what's the value and what's the feature and how they connect to each other. Yeah, actually in this group, I noticed that in previous exercises, you said in strategy you would like to optimize for feature delivery. In the reward, you said you reward for value. Actually, even though that's a good thing, but it's not consistent. Put that into context. Now, by changing the strategy to optimize for value, then it's consistent. Okay, so we will move on to. So now it completes the whole. The first half of the transition. The feature team is a critical element
でフィーチャーチーム
in
が
that transition.
その
And
絶対条件ですよ
It
ね。
can help you move your folks from task efficiency to feature deliveries and also value optimization, even that's probably in your local scope. But our goal is to explore the transition from local efficiency to global value. So we still need to move forward by looking at how can we transition from local value to global value. One of the problems
一
is
つよく見られる問題なんですけども、
local value versus global value. Because that local value, when I say local value, it sort of indicates that each team has its own backlog. This is what I mentioned earlier, is that for the highest value items in your local backlog could be ranked low in the global backlog.
で
So this is why we would like to adopt one product backlog. Yeah, having one backlog means multiple feature teams actually will work from one priority. I just want to actually point out here
これで
there's one confusing thing.
指
When
摘
we
したいところなんですけども、
create one product backlog,
一つの
what
プロダクトバッ
happens
クログを
in
作る
some
ことによって、
organizations
ある組織の中で見られるパター
is
ンなんですが、
the overall product owner
でその全体プロダクトオーナーが
each different domains asking what are the
各
top
ドメインで
items in your domain. This is not really one product backlog. So I call it a collection multiple backlog. So that wouldn't give you the global value optimization. Adopting one product backlog wouldn't happen automatically either. Again, it requires deliberate organizational redesign. So now we change the strategy from optimizing for value but locally to optimizing value globally. We would like to actually change the feature team a bit because now each feature team will work on anything that comes top in the product backlog.
ですよね。
I put here as a flexible feature team. The term that I sometimes hear or sometimes use is
でもう一つの言い方なんですけど
generic feature team. This
もういい
is
ね
in contrast to specialized feature
で
team.
これがまあ今日
Here,
で
the
ジェネラル
specialization means on the custom domain,
で
not technical. I'm thinking if we do a quick, maybe 3-4 minutes exercises based on your previous discussion. If we say now we would like to optimize for global value, what needs to be changed looking at your star model?
私たちのチームはプロセスのところ話が出たのはその価値っていうところで話をしていた時に顧客価値だけではなくて全体最適化ってなるとそのリファクタリングといったシステム価値だったりとか組織的なその顧客の行動変容を理解する顧客理解のための分析の価値っていうものがあるのでそのプロセスの段階でどういった価値があってそれをコスト化したりとかして何が一番最も価値があるのかっていうのを関係者が話し合う機会を設けることが大事だっていうところで話をしました。
Just add one thing, so
一つ
because it's about process. Say we do this kind of things in multi-team,
で
PBR,
例え
product
ばリファイ
backlog
メントマル
refinement
チチームであ
instead
った
of
りそのステークホ
single
ルダー
team.
がいたり
Perhaps I will add one thing, then we move on.
次
For
行きます
example,
時間なんで
previously in previous exercise, you said that
先
these
ほどの練習の
rewards
中で
could be team-based rewards.
そのまあチームで評
But
価とか
now
チームの
multiple
補修
teams
と
work on same product.
か同じ
right?
プロダクトを
You
作ってるん
probably
ですよ
at
ね。
least have some
なので
weight on the whole product level reward rather
で
than each individual.
プロダ
Because
クト全体を考えたのを
otherwise
まあ
you
評価も
create
しな
this
きゃ
kind
い
of
けないですよ
competition
ね。
among teams, right? All right. So this organizational redesign, I know that you had great discussion. You probably have more ideas.
皆さんよく話してていろいろ
We
アイデア
can
があるだろ
later
うけ
in
ど
Q&A, for example, we share more. This refined or updated organizational design actually fosters not only one team taking shared responsibility, but also multiple teams take a shared responsibility for the same product. So in a way, this organizational design actually aligns the motivation. So we need to also look at the capability.
いけないんですよね。
I already mentioned about multi-team PBR.
でそのまあ
where
複数チームのリファイメントをするっていう
different
ところも
teams
お話
come
しましたけど、で
together,
各
actually
違うチームが集まっ
learn
て、で
across domains, across
その
custom domain. Okay, so that completes the picture. So it's a transition. The first step is
でまあ
using the feature
ゆっ
team
くり
to
の変化かもし
shift
れないで
the
すけど
focus from task efficiency
タスク効率からフ
to
ィ
features
ー
and
チ
the
ャー提
value.
供最終的には価値提
Initially,
供の中で
then
も
by using
で
the
も
next step to have multiple feature teams
そ
to
の
share
複数フ
one
ィーチャー
product
チームで
backup.
一つのプラットフォームからタスクをアイテムもらって作ってる皆さん
So,
の気
so
になる
now, with this understanding, we would like
AI の
to
ところなんですけども
add
で
the AI's perspective. I've seen that many organizations start to adopting AI, but
私
the
が見
way
てる
that
限
they
りで見
adopt
てるのが
AI
まあもう
is mostly based on their own, mostly in their current structure.
ですよね
For
だから
example,
会社構造を変えずに
developers
AI を導
adopting
入す
AI
る
tools to help their developer, testers help
で
using
開発者が
AI
AI を
tools
使って自分の使用をしてもらうテストの人は AI を導入してテストの
in that
で
regard, we've
こ
seen
の観
positive
点から
results.
出るんですけど
We
も
get more done.
でね
We probably get it done with higher quality. We get fewer, less technical debts. But this is
で
the thing that most of our organizations have been doing. This is essentially improving task efficiency.
これが
So we would like to see what's the impact on the feature and value. If you look at feature from end-to-end
その
perspective,
エンドエンド
you want to actually watch out for the WIP where the work in progress actually increases.
なぜ
Because that those are local improvements, like for different functions or for different components, those kind of local improvements, if they are not balanced, it will generate more bottleneck, which further increase weak line. If you've done organizational design properly, then by clarifying that, let's say, feature end-to-end, the cycle time is one thing that you would like to optimize for, then it becomes very obvious you will look at from this perspective. Otherwise, you may have wishful thinking that by doing or improving the task efficiency, you automatically get to the feature level improvement. So we've already learned that feature team adoption is one of the effective approaches to shift the focus from task to feature and value. The question becomes how can we leverage AI
AI は
to support more effective feature team? We already learned that organizational design helps align the motivation, but we still need multi-learning to help develop the capability. So it becomes natural that you look at how can we leverage AI to support the multi-learning. So instead of just applying AI for your own function, we explore various ways of applying AI to help you learn a different domain, different technique faster. While you probably gradually observe some improvement at feature level, there are a couple of things I suggest you to pay attention. One is about the size of the team. We actually would like to have smaller size team because smaller size team tend to be more collaborative and more accountable.
でそのまあ
We were limited by the breadth of our knowledge and skills. Suppose that we are now each member can cover more actually.
例えばそれ
Then
今
it becomes
その
possible that we have a relatively small size team. For example, we used to have like 7-8 people teams, and
で
now
まあ
we probably can
従来は
go
まあ
for more
7、
like
8
4 or 5
だったの
people
が
team. Another factor is the
でもう一つ
the
は
scope of the team. We may still have the same size, but the team can
人
cover
数は変わ
more.
らない
So then we need to look at what limits our team scope initially. The breadth of knowledge and skills is one thing.
観点なんで
Another
すけども
thing is
もう一
actually
つが
organizational boundary. So that part requires organizational redesign again
でま
to
たその組織図を考え直さなければいけ
kind
な
of
いっていう
enable
こと
team to be able to work on wider scope. It could be a combination of decreasing team size and expanding team scope. Okay, that's about the first half of the transition.
なんですけ
If
ども、
we look at the next part, which is adopting one product backlog, it's very similar.
なんですが、
Organizational design actually fosters the motivation. We need
とその強化
mountain
をする。
learning. In this regard, this is across custom domains.
次
So
は
the
そのバックロ
question
グをマット
becomes,
する。
how can we leverage AI for that purpose? While we see the advance in adopting fewer backlogs, we perhaps look at a few other things as well.
が検証するところが
One
ありま
is
す。
the
一つ
size
が
of backlog items. Notice that we have,
で
let's say, 5 feature teams working
で
on
5
one
つのフィー
product
チャー
backlog.
プロ
The
バックロ
number
グ
of
で
the
着地するんですよ
backlogs,
ね。
top backlogs, already
でそれで
a
その
lot
バックロ
more
グアイ
than
テム
one
の
team.
上の方が
Right.
まあ
So,
高チーム分になりますから、
we
バックログは
need to
結構数多
Think
くなっ
about
ちゃうんですよ
if
ね。同じ
every
流動でしたら
team。is able to actually deliver more items.
で、
If we have the same item granularity,
同じフィーチャーの数を提供するか
in
と
one
っても
backlog.
細かい
So
大きい
that
バック
would
ログに
make
な
the
るから
prioritization, the
でそれが
management backlog more difficult. So chances are we may see the increasing of backlog item size. The previous one item, if it takes 2 weeks, you probably will split that. But now, if it takes 3 days, you don't split it anymore.
Yeah.
That makes you having more bigger items. Another thing that you will notice is thinking about how many people or how many teams working for one product or one product backlog.
ね。
We may have few teams for one product backlog because that's all we need. If you are familiar with less terminology, it may mean that you used to need to have less huge adoption, but
Yeah.
now a less basic adoption would be suffice. Last thing, we started with this idea of optimizing for global value.
の話だと思うんですが
I wonder actually if the AI, because it seems that AI provides immense capacity at a low cost. This perception will actually create a negative impact on our focus on global value.
あるでしょう
I
ね。
still remember that in those kind of good times,
昔よく古き時に
organizations don't care about creating some waste
別に
due
無駄があっても
to local optimization.
でその仕方ないっていう態度を取れたところだわっていう
It's
世界
actually
だっ
the
たんですけども
economic downturns that creates motivation to focus on the global value.
出ますので
AI is sort of like you have suddenly you have a budget or money to hire more developers. Then you don't care very much whether this is high value or that is high value.
もう
So
もちろん
that's a negative side. Yeah. So this is still the early age. So lots of ideas or questions in my mind. I don't have the
まだ
answer yet. Yeah. So that's a kind of summary slides, and we end. Task efficiency to
その
feature
タス
local
ク効
value
率
and
から
global
フィー
value.
チャーとか
Two main approaches is feature team and
でそれ
one
を
product
解
backlog.
決
And
まあ
we
単一プロダク
learned
トバックロ
that
グでもう一つ
organizational
学んだのが
design
そ
is
の
very critical.
その組織構
Especially
造が
aligning the motivation.
まあ
Then
統合させる統一
we
させるこ
can
とができます
think more about using or leveraging AI to
で
help
その中で
multi-learning in developing our skills. I don't know. Chances are it's all given by Amazon, so I have no idea. All right, thank you.
ありがとうございます